Welcome back to Idioms for IELTS with me, Will. Today we're at video number 7 and we're looking at the topic of government and society. For this topic, you might be asked questions about the role of the government, public services, how society deals with problems, poverty, crime, etc., the usual things. So we'll cover some idioms that may help with getting better vocabulary marks related to these topics. So first, let's look at the 5 idioms for today. So to throw money at a problem, to tighten the belt, to pass the buck, to be on the same page, and red tape. It's like a noun phrase. We'll have a look at them individually first and see how we use them. In this table, you can see the meaning in the example altogether. Let's look at them individually. So to throw money at a problem, what does it mean? It means to spend money to try to fix something, but you don't really look at the cause. You don't look for the reason why something is not working. You just spend a lot of money and hope that it works after that. So, for example, you can't solve homelessness just by throwing money at it. If you spend a lot of money trying to solve it, it's still not very effective unless you look at the real reasons for it in the first place. So that's to throw money at a problem, to tighten the belt. This is an example of an idiom that suggests this picture about a large gentleman trying to literally tighten the belt, but that's not what it means. It's not a literal meaning. What does it mean? It means to spend less money. If you tighten your belt, and you're not doing it literally, then that means you're trying to spend less money. And lots of people do that for many reasons, of course. Here's an example. Families have to tighten their belts when taxes go up. So when taxis are getting extremely expensive, and I mean government taxis, not vehicles, then you have less money. So you've got to tighten your belt and be careful with it. Next one, pass the buck. So to pass the buck, what does that mean? The definition means to avoid responsibility by giving it to someone else. So you get a lot of politicians doing this. They don't want to take the blame for some terrible thing they did. So they blame it on someone else. He said it was someone else's fault. Businessmen do the same thing. And basically, people trying to avoid responsibility for something they did, they tried to say, oh, it was him over there. Even children do it. It's a childish thing, really. Example, the mayor tried to pass the buck to the city council. See, he was saying, it wasn't me, the city council did it. And it's a childish thing, really. Right. Usually you say to be on the same page as each other. That means you basically agree. You understand something in the same way. You share understanding, you have an agreement, or you agree on something. The government and the public need to be on the same page about climate policy, so they need to agree. They can either agree that it's incredibly important and we're all going to die if we don't pay attention to it, or they have to agree that it's not important and we'll somehow survive without this climate policy. So they have to agree no matter what. That means to be on the same page. And then red tape, as I said, it's like a noun phrase, very common expression. Red tape is official rules and processes that make it difficult to do something. So usually, like you want to do something that should be simple, but then you have to fill in so many forms to do it. You just want to do this one thing, but along comes government or officials and say, well, you have to fill in this form, this form, this form, wait, and then fill in another form, wait, and go for an interview. This is all red tape. It makes some simple process seem much more difficult because of official rules and processes. An example, starting a business here takes forever because of all the red tape. In some countries, it's quite simple to start a business, it's quite quick. But in other countries, you've got so many forms and regulations and all this that it takes a very long time to be able to even start your business. This time we'll look at speaking part 3. Somebody's throwing money at something. Here's a question. Do you think governments spend money effectively? Sample answer could look like this. Not always. Sometimes they just throw money at a problem instead of tackling the real cause. And there's often so much red tape that projects take years to complete. You could make one also. Pause the video, as I usually say. Try to give your own answer to this using at least two idioms from the list I've given you at the start. And see if you can give an answer using them. Writing task 2 question. Some people believe government should spend more money on public services rather than the arts. To what extent do you agree? This is a very common question, and it usually plays on this idea that the arts are just entertainment and not very important, and public services, of course, are very important. So it's the practical versus what someone might say is impractical, as usually what they're looking for. But of course, you may argue the opposite, or you may argue that they're equal, or arts is more important, and think of a good reason. So, anyway, this is a standard question. How do we answer it with some idioms here? Well, if it was spoken, we could say it's not enough just to throw money at public services. There are other parts of us that need help and need arts. They don't just need public services. But if you're doing it in the writing task too, then it's likely that you will not use the idiom. Therefore, what you have to do is reformulate that and make it more formal and academic sounding. So the writing would say something like this: allocating additional funding to public services alone is insufficient. Structural reforms are also necessary to address the root causes of social problems. So perhaps that addresses the question, but it's much more formal sounding and no idiom. So that's the difference again between the speaking and the writing. And in speaking, informal can still get you good marks. You can practice this. Here are the 5 idioms we looked at earlier with their examples. And your job is to pause the video now and rewrite them as formal writing task 2 sentences. If you wish, you can leave them in the comments below. I'm going to show you my possible answers in a moment. Let's just quickly read through the sentences and then I'll leave you to it. You can't solve homelessness just by throwing money at it. Families have to tighten their belts when taxes go up. The mayor tried to pass the buck to the city council. The government and the public need to be on the same page about climate policy, and starting a business here takes forever because of all the red tape. All right, so pause the video now and see if you can write formal versions of that so that you have a good speaking answer and a good written answer. Here's some suggestions for possible answers then. Throw money at the problem. So we don't want to use that. Instead, we could say increasing funding alone will not resolve the underlying causes of homelessness. Tighten the belt becomes households reduce non-essential spending when taxes increase. So reduce non-essential spending refers to tightening the belt. Pass the buck. The mayor attempted to shift responsibility to the city council. Pass the buck, blame someone else, shift responsibility. On the same page, we usually say to be on the same page. So the government and the public need to share a common understanding regarding climate policy. It could say agree, for example, but share a common understanding sounds quite nice and formal. And red tape, excessive bureaucracy delays the process of starting a business. So actually, red tape, a very good word to describe this formally, is bureaucracy. Of course, what's difficult about that is the spelling. There's a lot of vowels in the word bureaucracy. U, then E, then A, then U, then A again. So quite difficult one to spell, but that would be a good synonym for that expression, red tape. As I said, they're just suggestions. Perhaps you've got better ones which you can show me. So if you want to practice it, you should try to use at least 2 idioms from the previous mentioned list. To answer this speaking part 3 style question. Question: do you think governments spend money effectively? So they spend money, is it mostly effectively? Not at all. You decide, but try to use 2 idioms. I'll give you a possible answer, which means you must come up with a different answer. No, not always. Sometimes governments just throw money at a problem without solving the real issue, and there's often too much red tape, which slows down progress. So I've used 2: red tape and throwing money at a problem, hoping it will go away. Yeah, so that's the speaking practice. So to recap, here are today's idioms, this lesson's idioms. To throw money at, not good for writing. None of these, I think, are good for writing. To tighten the belt, to pass the buck, to be on the same page. And red tape, again, all right, maybe, possible. Bureaucracy, though, may sound a bit better if you can spell it. Again, with a topic like government and society, you have to be rather precise with vocabulary and phrasing in general. It's a very official topic, if you like, you know. But idioms are good for the speaking, and this is what people use when they speak, and it can often be persuasive and engaging. Thing is, idioms paint a little picture, and that's always quite good when you're speaking. If you want some homework, as usual, you could record a speaking answer, this time to part 3 question about government spending. Use 2 idioms. Or you could rewrite this for the writing. There's too much red tape in the country's healthcare system. All right, and so that's the end of this quick lesson. I'll see you next time when we'll talk about everyone's favorite subject, money.